The only wrong answer is that you are trying to do it for reasons that don't actually resonate with you, because you think it's going to sound good, because you think people are going to think more of you, whatever. Like, it has to be a reason that truly means something to you.
Welcome to the Infinite Grit Podcast. This is the show for those preparing to earn their place in special operations and other elite tactical careers. We break down the training, mindset, and strategies required to get selected and continue performing long term. These are proven principles to help you build the body, the mind, and resilience to step into the fight.
What would it take for you to rejoin the military?
Something significant. I think if I were to rejoin the military, it would have to be like a 9/11 or Pearl Harbor type incident. Mm-hmm. And like one of those incidents or one of those conflicts that is going to require people to go into drafts and do all that stuff. I'm pretty freaking happy with my life right now. I'm in a very good place. And I think my priorities have changed from when I was a young man. Like, obviously, what has gone on in the world has changed as well. I grew up watching Afghanistan take place, and that was something that a lot of the people I looked up to were involved in, so I wanted to be involved in it as well. But I also joined the military because I wanted like that sense of adventure. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to learn different skill sets. I wanted to push myself beyond what I thought was possible and see if I could do all this stuff. Like, I had all of these underlying reasons in addition to wanting to serve our nation that I wanted to go into the Army. And now I still have a lot of ambition, but it's funneled much differently. And, I just had a kid, have a wife, have the business, like everything I'm doing, I'm in a very good place. So it would take something very, very significant for me to join the military.
Do you think there's a direct correlation between the amount that you have to lose versus the amount you have to gain when it comes to that? Like, you mentioned wife, kids, house, business, all that stuff versus when you're younger and joining. Do you think that kind of has an effect on it as well?
Yeah. And when I was younger, I moved every other year pretty much. I moved 18 times before I turned 18 years old. So I was just in this mindset of like, I always move. I'm kind of on, like, I'm never in one place for very long, very adventurous. Like, I wanted to go do that stuff. And now I've lived in the same house now for almost 3 years since getting out of the military. And this is the longest I've ever lived in one place. And it's like the first time I've ever really been able to like establish roots in one environment. And I'm really enjoying that process. And it opened my eyes to the amount you can accomplish by just being consistent with one thing over a period of time. Mm-hmm. And now, like I said, I have very big goals, very ambitious, things that I want to accomplish in the future. But it just requires me to keep my head down, keep doing what I'm doing, and like keep building off the roots that we already established. So I think when I was younger, I wanted to thrive and I wanted to kind of continue what I had been doing up until that point. And I got to a point in like my late 20s, that 10-year mark in the military where, I just continued that my entire life. And I was like, man, I kind of want to like live in one place. I kind of want that, not to get complacent, but I want to build and be part of a community in a particular environment, because my community has always changed. I've never had one set of friends that I really get to know on a deep level. It's like I'll make some friends, we'll go through some shit together, we'll become, really close, and then we'll both go our separate ways, and then it's hard to stay in touch after that. So like I want that like really deep connection, really built out community in a particular place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Side note, it's funny, all the people you meet in the military and you just never see them again, right? It's just, yeah. There's
sad.
Yeah, it is. But it's also like kind of one of the coolest parts, It's like you get to meet these people. It's like, dude, we're best friends, did we just become best friends? And then like, TDY or, you get moved and you never see them again. It's like, damn.
Yeah. I think you develop really close friendships. One, with people who you would never have come across ever in your entire life outside of the military. And two, very, very quickly in that environment. So Yeah, I mean, I think that's like one of the hidden gems of, not hidden gem, everyone knows about it, but that's one of the gems of military service, is like really developing these friendships with a wide range of people that come from all different backgrounds. It's definitely tough to keep in touch with everybody because you go your separate ways, different environments, different jobs, different deployments, all that type of stuff. But for that period of time, when you're that close to somebody going through those hardships or those challenges that are presented, it is a very unique experience.
A good friend of mine, he'd gone through one of those like COVID camps down in JRTC.
Yeah.
And, he got COVID, was positive. They like threw him into this like little, essentially like a prison camp. And they're like, you're going to stay there until you get better. And he's like, I don't have any of my shit. Like all my duffel bag, everything is with my unit. He shows up there with like his toothbrush in his pocket, and that's it. And he likes to talk the story of, he showed up and all these guys like, oh dude, like I have an extra pair of socks, like here's an extra uniform, here I got some underwear, all this stuff. He's like, holy cow, like I have everything I need now. Just these random dudes I never even met, and he's never gonna meet again. Like that's just like such a unique thing, because where else are you gonna be able to have that experience? Mm-hmm. Like you can't walk into some 9-to-5 corporate job and someone's like, dude, here's my underwear you can use for the day. It's just such a unique thing about the military that I think that's why people have such a nostalgia when they get out, and they have such like a sense of like, damn, like I really miss that. It's not the politics, it's not all the bullshit you got to deal with on a daily basis, but it's the people that you really are next to left and right that really make or break the experience. So
100%. Yeah, I think even in my experience, like on different deployments, you go out to an outstation and it's like a new environment, people you don't know, and they're always super helpful. And in the military, that's like, you'll see people just absolutely jump through hoops for you that you're not going to experience in a civilian world. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of benefits to it that I even miss looking back on it. Like, admittedly, I had kind of a rough transition period for like that 6 to 8 months out of the military. And that was one of the things that I was really lacking, was like that team environment, like having the people around you. But I think it's hard because it's always going to be short-lived inside the military. There will be a time where you go to your next duty station, your next assignment, and you kind of have to rebuild those relationships.
What was your last day in the Army like? Do you remember?
Mine was a little bit different. I did what's called a skill bridge. So when you're 6 months out in the military, you can go work with a different company, like with a civilian company, and your command can sign off on you going to do so. And then you're still in the Army, but your place of duty is to do that job.
That's cool. I didn't know they did that.
Yeah, it's either skill bridge, they call it, or CSP, career skills program. And just gives guys kind of like a runway to get out of the military. So I did that, and then I went back to Fort Carson, and then I had my week or so of out processing, doing all that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I remember it was like, it almost felt, when I finished my skill bridge and I went back to Fort Carson, it felt like I was on the outside looking in. It was a really, really weird feeling. I knew I had a couple days left of wearing this uniform that I had worn for 10 years up to that point. And I like got on base, and I just felt like, even though it was a very short period of time had elapsed since I was very integrated in that environment, felt like I was on the outside. So it was like kind of like a cold departure out of the Army. You know what I mean? It was like, he's out of here.
Yeah.
That's something that you got to understand. Like, the military is a machine. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, when you raise your hand and you're like, actually, I'm going to get out. They're kind of, depends on your command, but different commands, they're just going to be like, oh, you're getting out of the military? Be gone with you.
Yeah.
So,
Away with you.
yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that's why a lot of people say value your marriage and your family, because, once you get out, you get that DD-214, they're going to be there, and the Army's not. Like, the Army's going to keep doing its thing, and your family's either going to be still there waiting for you, ready to, continue life, or, you gave them up for the military, and then you have nothing. So,
Yeah. Never sacrifice your family. Never sacrifice yourself for the military.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lesson I had to learn the hard way a little bit, going throughout my military career. Because there's times where I was like so obsessed with it, or so like in it, that one, it really led to a point of burnout. towards the end of my career. And two, I almost didn't know who I was without that. So that's what led to that kind of transition period. Luckily I found my wife as I was leaving the military. So she was a huge, provided a lot of support throughout that process. But it is absolutely true that when you're done with the military, like you're gone. Like it's going to continue on without you, like nothing happened. So you want to make sure that you don't lose yourself in that process. You don't become so attached to it that is who you are and your identity. You maintain doing the things that you love doing, having hobbies outside of work. Like don't be afraid to take your personality into that environment. And then obviously, if you have a family, really prioritize them. Like that's very important that a lot of guys miss. And that's why, divorce rates in SF are 80%. So they're high. And, some of the best guys that I've ever seen that maintain their families just really prioritize communication, really prioritize spending time with them when they're off, like not going out with the boys and just doing all that stuff. Like you got to spend time with your family.
Yeah, I love that. What was your first job getting out?
I was sanding cars for my brother.
Wow. Like the outsides, insides?
Outside of cars. So my brother was a painter. I thought I wanted to get into real estate. I started buying some rental properties up in Colorado when I was still in, which I'm still, trying to sell one of those right now. But I started Infinite Grit, and I knew I wanted to get into training. I'd always loved fitness. I just had no idea how to do it. The military doesn't teach you anything about starting a business. So I was just like figuring it out. So I wasn't making any money. I was losing a lot of money very quickly, just running through my savings. And so my brother, who paints cars for a living, he's like, hey, yeah, come here from 8 to 12 and I'll give you $20 an hour. So every day from 8 to 12 for the first, 2 months or 3 months, I just sanded cars for him so I could, prep him so he can paint them in the booth and stuff. It was weird. It was humbling to go from this environment where I'm, I feel like not a top gun, but I feel like a performer. Like I'm doing shit. And then I get out of the military, pay stops. I know I want to start a business. I don't know what I'm doing, so business isn't making any money. I'm running through my savings now. I just have to take whatever I can get. And then he has a drinking problem, so he showed up to drunk one day at work and messed up a paint job, and we both got fired. So I mean, it was
together like alcohol and power tools.
Yeah. I had some opportunities to work normal jobs, but like I said, I joined the Army out of high school and always lived with my parents up until that point. And then I spent 10 years in the Army, and I just felt like I had never experienced true freedom. I always, where I lived was dictated by somebody. What I did was dictated by somebody. Where I was going to be on a daily basis was dictated by somebody. So getting out of the military, like many veterans experience, I was like, I'm going to do whatever I can to not get a normal job. So I did.
And here you are.
Here I am. Yeah.
Telling other people.
Make my own schedule.
Make my own damn workouts.
Now I work way more than I ever have in my entire life.
I know. Every time I see, I was like, how's your weekend, man? I'm working.
I've taken 2 days off in the last 2 years. The day I got married and the day my daughter was born.
Yeah.
That's it. 2 days off.
It's hardcore, man. Yeah. It's a small price to pay to see other people get to their goals. Huh?
Yeah. It is funny, though. I think about I want control over my schedule and freedom, and now I work way more than I would if I had a normal job. Yeah. So obviously I'm very thankful for what I get to do, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. But it is funny, looking at the comparison between the two.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, I know you sanded cars. I'll hire you out for the old Toyota I'm working on.
I'll help you paint it.
Yeah. you're an expert, clearly.
Yeah.
Just don't show up drunk. So if you were to join the military, what would you do you think? Would you go back to SF? Would you possibly do National Guard, reserves? What would that look like for you if you decide to take that step?
I would definitely go back to SF.
Yeah.
you know, if I could be on a team, jump right into a team and jump right into a deployment, that'd be freaking awesome. Not have to deal with any of the bureaucracy or, you know, time in garrison. Yeah, that's cool. I think one job that has always really interested me was being a pilot, and particularly in the 160th. And I read the book Razor 03, which is the Alan Mack is his name, I believe, if I didn't butcher that. But he was a pilot in the 160th for Chinooks for 20 years, 25 years or something like that, and shares his experience, you know, being one of the first guys in Afghanistan. He's the guy whose helicopter got shot down on Roberts Ridge, and he had to land, you know, crash land down at the valley floor during Operation Anaconda, like all this stuff. And I remember I was walking with my wife one night, and I was like, man, what I would give to be a pilot in the 160th. I was like, I would honestly join back if I could, like, skip the time in the regular army and just download the skill set, which is obviously impossible, and be a pilot in the 160th right now. I would 100% do it. I think that's one of the most underrated places you can be. Best pilots in the world, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So if I could just choose any job, which I know is crazy, and the attrition rate to even be a pilot in the 160th is insanely high, that would be really freaking cool, is to fly, and particularly in the 160th.
Yeah. What's appealing about aviation to you? Is it that freedom aspect as well?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I've always just loved helicopters. It's not even like aviation as a whole, like planes and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I can give two shits about like A-10s or anything like that. Jet, yeah. They're cool, but I've just loved helicopters my whole life. Even when, like, didn't matter how many times I rode on a helicopter, I just thought they were so cool. Even though I got motion sickness from riding on them. I even threw up on a helicopter one time on a Blackhawk when these Slovakian pilots were freaking doing elevators and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I never got sick of flying on helicopters as a team guy. It was always like anytime we had an opportunity to fly or do a, you know, aerosol insertion or whatever, like I was like, hell yeah, this is sick. Like this is the stuff I want to do. So
yeah, it's fascinating, man. At Fort Rucker, they have Blackhawk, and it's like a cutaway, and you can see like all the internal components and like all the gears and, you know, wires and tubings and all that. And it's just like, man, people with hands made that. It's insane. Yeah.
How has your experience been being a flight medic so far?
So far, it's been awesome, man. You know, I've only gotten to fly a handful of times, so I just finished a critical care course this past summer, and then I'm going to Fort Rucker here for probably about 3 or 4 weeks, and then be completely signed off, and then I'll be flying quite a bit after that.
Heck yeah.
I'm kind of like you. I get a little bit of the motion sick, especially, you know, nighttime. It's like you can't really see the horizon. They're moving, doing twists and turns, but I think it's one of those things. It's like, man, this is awesome. This beats being on the ground for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just like feeling the force of that, right? And like hearing the noise of, you know, like while you're sitting in there, it's fascinating to me. So,
yeah. Super cool.
Yeah.
I think when I think back about the experiences I had in the military, I think one of my favorite experiences was always infilling into a mission, and you land these missions, you weren't getting, you know, shot at or whatever off the helicopter. You land in like this remote place, and it's like super high intensity. You're getting off the bird. There's wind going everywhere, super loud. And then the helicopters lift off and fly away, and it's just dead silent. Like that moment when it's just dead silent, and you're like, okay, now we go, is like my favorite, you know, couple moments of a mission or experience. I look back on them like that's, you know, I miss that.
For me, it's a training, like when we're in the field and we call for a medevac, you know, we've got the mannequin laying there, and they're like, all right, we'll be 5 minutes. And you're like, I don't hear anything. I don't see anything. And then just like out in the distance, you hear that, you know, that drone. And then all of a sudden it's like hearing it's loud as hell, you know, busting your ears. And then all of a sudden it's gone again. And like you said, that silence, it's like, damn, that was cool.
Yeah.
It was really neat. We had the opportunity they have the Watts, they call it, down in southern Arizona. It's a Western Army aviation training site, and they've got like aviation trainers there, and they let a few of the medics like try piloting. It was cool. Like, it was
How'd you do it?
I did pretty good. And so I played like flight sim games, so I kind of had like a general understanding of like, oh, you know, we move the stick this way. Like it wasn't super like difficult, but I did learn the hard part isn't flying, it's landing.
I learned, yeah. I mean, this is like stupid compared to that, but have you ever played the game Squad?
I've heard of it. Yeah,
I think I've talked to you about it a few times, but they have in Squad you have to have like a logistics guy, which is like one of the coolest aspects in the game to me, because it's like, you know, 50 versus 50 online, trying to fight for terrain, and you have to continuously refill ammo, provide logistic support for the guys, and you can do so by helicopter. So I was like, man, I'm going to learn how to fly these helicopters. This is badass. This is like during COVID, you know, we were stuck at home.
Right.
And I started playing the shit out of Squad. And I like started flying this helicopter, and you just like crash landing every single time. I was so bad at it.
Yeah.
But
SOAR ready.
yeah, dude, but that's when, you know, the thought of like, it's easy to fly, it's hard to land, you know, it started to make sense to me. I'm like, damn, this is, if I can't do it on a computer, how could I do this in person? So
One of the instructor pilots, he had like made an adjustment on the computer to like make it so I was like constantly like turning right, and the newer pilot sitting next to me, he's like, hey man, like let go of the stick. Like he thought it was me doing it, I thought it was him doing it. It was just the helicopter was like constantly like, doing this, and we're both like blaming each other. Yeah,
that's hilarious.
yeah, it's kind of funny. So.
Did you crash at all?
Oh yeah.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it feels like pretty real when you're in there too, and it's like Arizona, you know, so you see like the same mountains you'd see outside, and you know, and you're like coming towards the ground, and you're like, oh shit, here we go.
Does it roll and stuff?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's cool, and like the whole pod like can move too. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it's a pretty unique experience. But when you went, because you were with 160th before,
Yeah.
and how long were you with them?
I was with them for 3 years.
Okay.
So luckily, you know, I joined the Army originally as EOD. I failed out of EOD school. I went need to the Army, got reclassed to a job 15 Golf, which is aircraft structural repair. It's kind of like what I talked about. I was like bending sheet metal in the warehouse. I was like, this is not what I wanted to do. But at the end of the AIT, or Advanced Individual Training course, for the 15 Golf MOS, they had a 160th brief, and they brought us in this classroom, and they put on a TV, and they're showing people under night vision, fast roping, flying their helicopters with the fuel probe. And I was like, dude, that's sick. Like I didn't even know it existed. And I was like, sign me up. And the recruiter was basically like, hey, if you sign your name, you know, we really need guys, and especially 15 Golfs, like you're probably going to go. Like really good chance you're going to go to the 160th. So I took his words as gospel, and I was like, I'm freaking going to the 160th. I was like telling everybody, I'm like going to special operations, all this stuff. And I got orders for Katterbach, Germany, to just go out and into the regular Army and be a 15 Golf. And towards the end of AIT, I still had orders. I was like, where are my 160th orders? I graduated AIT. They purchased my flight to go to Germany, and I, like a freaking child, stood at the lady that like cuts the orders, stood at her office. This is like 4 p.m. on a Friday, you know what I mean, after graduation. I was like, I'm going to the 160th. I was like, I need new orders. I volunteered for it. And I just literally sat there until I was like a squeaky wheel. She was probably just like, get out of here. And then finally she gave me my orders, and I was like, all right, I'm going to the 160th.
yeah, I did it.
Yeah. So I like, you know, clawed my way into the opportunity, and then went out to Fort Campbell. You do hold platoon. So I was in hold platoon for a month, and then you start green platoon. And green platoon was really cool, but hold platoon was way harder. We just got smoked all day long. You know, we're going through a mud pit just all freaking day, morning to night, just getting smoked.
You're like, this isn't like the videos at all.
Yeah, it was literally, they had this mud pit in front of the barracks, and it was literally wake up, do PT, get like 20 minutes to eat, get back outside, get the dog shit smoked out of you, go into the pit, go back into the barracks, go back outside nice and clean, go have to clean the barracks because they're all muddy, and just repeat that the entire day. So you kind of get to the point where you're like, dude, I just want green platoon to start because this is terrible. And then we finally got into green platoon. That was August of 2013.
So what is green platoon? Explain that to anyone who doesn't know.
Green platoon is the course, or the selection course, to get into the 160th. So similar to like RASP, how everyone that goes into the unit needs to go through the course. Everyone that goes into the 160th needs to go through, green platoon. It's not like SF where you can just get attached to it. Like everyone has to go through it. And it was really cool. They have 4 different phases. They have a week of weapons training, which was conducted by like former Green Berets. So it's actually pretty good weapons training. A week of medical, you learn IVs, MPA, all that stuff. A week of combatives, and then a week of land navigation. So you learn all of these basic combat skills. So EGP, which is enlisted green platoon, and just enlisted combat skills, and you just learn those. And then they have like different gated events, like a 4-mile run, PT test. Back then they did a 12-mile ruck. Right now I think they're doing an 8-mile ruck, so they dropped it down a little bit. You have to find your points at land nav, or you can get dropped. They have one day where it's called Black Day, and this is, you guys can probably search on YouTube of like Green Platoon or 160th, surviving the cut. They did a series about this, and Black Day is like a 24-hour day or an 18-hour day where you're just getting smoked the entire day. Just like go from doing push-ups in the field and running, going through the pit, to pulling an LMTV and needing to carry logs throughout the streets of Fort Campbell. So it's a pretty brutal day, but it's kind of a course where it's not like SFAS in the sense of like you have to really perform and you can get kicked out of the course. It's more of like you have to perform in those few gated events. The standards aren't crazy, and then you just have to not quit.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to like show that you really want to be there.
Did you see the surviving the cut before you went?
I watched it after I learned from the recruiter that the 160th even existed. And I was like, this is sick. Like,
Yeah.
I get to do exactly what I wanted to do. I get to push myself and all this stuff. So I got really excited about it.
Yeah, I saw that documentary a long time ago. I remember them like doing a layout or something, and it was like super dark, and you can't even tell like whose stuff is whose. And you're just out there on the flight line or wherever that large concrete flat part in front of the bunker is. But
Right.
yeah, it's a cool documentary. If people haven't seen it, they should definitely watch it.
Yeah, you have to do layouts is a big thing there. So you have to have all of your equipment, your packing list, and it has to be like labeled in little bags. Everyone's writing in the entire platoon has to be the exact same. And you lay it out on your poncho, and every item for everyone has to be in the exact same position. It's never perfectly right. So as soon as they find a default or a fault from anybody in the platoon, they'll just like start kicking shit and like putting it into a pile, and then you have to go find it. It's like, that's one of the big things is you just get smoked, and you have to like really pay attention to detail, or you just continuously get smoked the entire time.
I wonder if that's because they got to be around aircraft, and the importance of like a tool missing, or if they find like one screw on the ground, down the aircraft, like we need to make sure it's not missing from this. And I wonder if that's like just that attention to detail, if that's where that comes in.
Probably, yeah. If you leave a tool up in the engine compartment, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, like that can potentially down a helicopter.
Yeah.
So yeah, their attention to detail is huge with the 160th. But overall, man, it was one of the funnest courses that I ever went to inside the Army. Like it has that kind of sting to it where it's like challenging, but it's not terrible. But I remember like when you get to week 3, week 4, we did combatives. I mean, there's like a big combatives tournament, and it's like everyone's in it, and it's more of like there's a really lot of camaraderie built by that point. So I remember at the end of the course, I was almost like, I want to get to the 160th and don my beret and all that stuff, but I kind of don't want it to end. Like I'm having a lot of fun. This is really cool. So yeah, really, really cool course for anybody that is aviation or looking to go aviation. I highly recommend looking into the 160th. They even have a contract now where you can, like an option 40 contract, but this is for the 160th, where you can join with like a 15 Tango, Black Hawk repairman job and go straight into the 160th, which is super cool.
Yeah, that's sick. That's really cool. So, once someone gets to 160th, what does that look like? Like, what was your first day there like, and how was your experience day to day?
Mine was unique because most of the time you go to one of the 4 battalions. There's 1st Battalion, which they describe as like the show. Those are going to be the guys that do all the like super secret cool stuff. 2nd Battalion, which is at Fort Campbell, just kind of regular line company. 3rd Battalion's down in Savannah, Georgia, and then 4th Battalion's up at Fort Lewis. So typically you go to one of those 4 duty stations and you're there. My experience, I got my orders inside the 160th, and it was like, you're going to Fort Huachuca, Arizona. And I was like, everything I heard, there's nothing out in Fort Huachuca. Like, the 160th doesn't have anything. Well, they were starting up a new drone detachment for the 160th, but it was out in Huachuca is where it started. So I went out there, and we actually had like the activation ceremony of this unit. So I'm a plank holder in that company, which is cool.
That's sick.
And so my first 2 years were spent at Fort Huachuca learning drones. So now I went from I'm going to be EOD to, okay, I'm going to be doing sheet metal working on these badass helicopters to now I'm working on drones and I'm a mechanic turning wrenches on engines. Like, what am I doing? So I cross-trained as, back then it was called a 15 Echo, which is a UAS repairman. And then I worked on the MQ-1 Gray Eagle, which is a 58-foot wingspan, carries 4 Hellfires drone out at Fort Huachuca for a couple years, and then ended up moving to Fort Campbell. So my 160th experience was very unique, but I freaking loved it. Mm-hmm. We worked our asses off for sure. When you say like, what does the day-to-day look like? We, oftentimes we were doing 24-hour operations, so we were 12 on, 12 off, 5 days a week. So we definitely put in some hours to get that up and running.
Mm-hmm. I've only been to Huachuca a handful of times, but I hear it's really nice for people that are stationed down there. It's like one of the better Army bases I've heard.
Yeah, a lot of guys complain about it because Sierra Vista is kind of like an armpit to an extent, but I freaking loved it, dude. I didn't want to leave. That's where I got like super into hunting and started nerding out on that stuff. So I was obsessed with coyote hunting at the time. And I made a friend, made a good buddy, Jake, who actually just texted me the other day. I'll tell you about that. But he and I were just like obsessed with hunting. I would literally I bought a little 223 and kept it hidden under the baseboard of my truck so that I can go hunting before PT started at 6:30. And like during the summertime when the sun comes up at 5, we'd get an hour to go hunt, and then we'd strip off our clothes and have PTs underneath and then go straight to PT. That's cool. Yeah, we just hunted our asses off. So like outdoors type of stuff, very cool place to be.
What would you do with a coyote? Because you can't eat it, right?
Yeah, I'd tan the fur.
Oh, you would?
Yeah.
That's
so
cool.
I still have a bunch of furs. I got all into it. Like someone asked me the other day, kind of what did you get out of hunting? Like, I think he listened to the podcast, one of our guys in the community. And I always wanted to be somebody who was like self-sufficient. I grew up with a single mom, and she, I was interested in the outdoors, but just never had any exposure to it. So like when I wanted to learn how to hunt, I wanted to learn how to do it all. I wanted to learn how to butcher it. I wanted to learn how to package meat. I wanted to learn how to tan fur. So coyotes was like my lower barrier of entry. You don't need a tag or anything like that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to learn how to tan fur. So I did. And I was, tanning up hides and stuff like that in the barracks, which is a whole other story.
Yeah, just jars inside your barracks. Your
freaking weirdo.
Sergeant walks in, they're like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, but I had like a fleshing beam, and I was doing all this stuff. They're like, "What is wrong with you?"
I remember you talking about the bobcat in your freezer.
Yeah. That was the night before I deployed to Iraq. Did I tell you that?
No, I know that part.
So I was up in Tucson, and I was like hunting all that weekend, and this was like Sunday, and we were meeting up at like 3 a.m. to drive up to Tucson to go fly out. We were all deploying, or like a small group of us. And on my way back from Tucson, the sun was going down, but it's all public land on either side. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make one more stand. So I found this little off-road, and I had this like F-150, and I'm driving through this tall yellow grass, and my front 2 tires just fall off the face of the earth, and my truck is high centered. So I'm super stuck, dude.
You leave for deployment the next day.
I have like 6 hours left at this point. So I'm like, what am I going to do? Like my platoon sergeant is going to be pissed. Finally get it on stuck. I had like boards in the back, and I'm like putting stuff under the tires. I get it on stuck. Sun's just like dipping down, but I know there's this little creek just a couple hundred meters in. So I haul out to this creek. I had a Fox Pro, which is like a coyote collar. I put it up, sat back, started calling, and right away a bobcat comes creeping in. So I shoot it, and I was like, man, I'm gonna get this freaking thing mounted. So I called my buddy Jake, and I was like, dude, I'm leaving tonight. Could you get this to the taxidermist for me? And he lived in the barracks as well. So I called up the taxidermist. He's like, don't skin it, just freeze it, bring it to me whole so I can make sure it's skinned correctly and everything. And we had nowhere to put it, so we put it inside of his freezer in the barracks. And it was like, you open up his freezer and it was like coyote pelt, Hot Pockets, bobcat staring at you. We're like, dude, this is wild.
This is why we have barracks inspections right here.
Yeah, exactly. He actually had a barracks inspection with it in there, and they never opened it. We're like,
that's
God.
Hilarious. It's like, are there any rules about bobcats being inside the barracks? Probably not.
I guess I was a weird 19-year-old, but yeah, I got the outdoor bug for sure.
Yeah.
But
do you still have it?
The
Bobcat?
outdoor bug? Oh, bobcat? Yeah. It's in my storage unit right now.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. I need to. We need to get the office set up for our new podcast studio, and I'll hang it up in there.
Yeah, dude. It's just in the background.
Yeah.
I love it. That's cool, dude. Yeah, I think there's something to be said about just getting out there, doing stuff that genetically men are predisposition to do, right? So hunter gatherers sort of thing, like working with our hands. I think that a lot of people are kind of missing that, and once they kind of tap into that niche, like making something, killing something, skinning something, just having that experience, I think that it kind of unlocks a certain part of our brain that just gets those like endorphins flowing. It's like, yes, like this is what I was made for. This is what humans are capable of doing, have been doing for many, many generations before the era of Teams and Zoom meetings and all that. So yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said for that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think there's tremendous value in it. Not necessarily like, I'm not a big predator hunter these days. I just don't get as excited about killing predators as I did when I first started and didn't know much about it. But the skill set and the confidence and the value you get out of it, the character development out of like hunting and being able to do something without any guidance, completely on your own, and like solve these challenges, I think there is tremendous value in it.
Mm-hmm. That's cool, man. So back to 160th real quick. Do you think that they get the recognition that they deserve? Or do you think that that's kind of intentional, that they prefer to kind of stay on the down low and kind of work quietly?
Kind of intentional.
Yeah.
There's a part of the Night Stalker Creed where it says, service in the 160th is the calling, only a few will answer, for the mission is constantly demanding and hard, and the only reward is another mission that no one else will try. So it's like instilled in you that you don't care about that type of stuff. I'm not saying that they don't give awards and recognize people in the unit, but it is kind of like that same quiet professional type of thing. So I think now it's getting better, and I think they're such a small organization that they're not necessarily going to hurt too bad with recruiting, but they have like the Instagram and they're showing kind of the stuff they do, and a lot more people know what the 160th is and a lot of the stuff that they did in Afghanistan. There's books like Razor 03 that have come out and sharing those stories. So I think they are getting the recognition they deserve, but it's hard to put into words for people like how skilled these pilots are, how well-oiled of a machine the 160th is, how professional of an organization it is. Like, I have tremendous respect for the organization. I'll always kind of look back on that time with a lot of pride. So I think it is one of the most underrated soft pipelines you can go into the military, especially if you're like a 15 uniform or 15 tango, Chinook or Black Hawk mechanic, and go do a crew chief job over there. But I wouldn't say like they're super underrated or they don't get recognition, because they are starting to get a lot more of it as the stories out of Afghanistan start to roll out.
Mm-hmm. How long have they been around?
Since 81, I believe.
Okay.
After the failed attempt of the hostage rescue in Operation Eagle Claw, because basically what happened was they had a long range offset for helicopters to get these operators in and, handle this hostage rescue situation. And
Was that Israel?
Yes.
Okay.
No, sorry. Iran.
Iran. Got it.
And the helicopters crashed on the way on their infiltration. So they basically said, like, hey, we need a special operations aviation organization that can handle these types of missions. So the 160th was born. And that's why a lot of times you'll see like the fuel probes on helicopters. Like if you want to identify what is a regular Army helicopter versus what is a 160th helicopter, a 160th helicopter will always have that long fuel probe at the front of it. And that's so they can do these really long missions, mid-air refueling is what it's for. So even if, for the guys that read the book Razor 03, he had to fly from Pakistan into Afghanistan over these mountains, and it was like very treacherous missions, and he basically had to do multiple in-air refuels to even get guys to the X and get back safely. So like it's easy to think about a pilot, especially a helicopter pilot, and you're like, oh, you're not on the ground, like, you know what I mean, like you're safe, but those guys risk everything. And some of the operations that they run with those helicopters, going up to the elevations that they do, or going into flying through the conditions that they fly through, is very, very dangerous. And it takes a tremendous amount of skill. So like those guys are, very like the most skilled helicopter pilots, I think, in the world.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, one of the pilots at my unit, he'll say sometimes like there's old pilots and there's bold pilots, but there's no old bold pilots. And then I'm like thinking of 160th. I'm like, I don't know, I'm sure those guys are pretty bold, but I'm sure they're so well trained and that's just their life. They're true professionals. So
yeah, that's awesome. Funny. There's old pilots and there's bold pilots.
But there's no old bold.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I never knew like the pilots. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It was just kind of like, oh, sick, dude. Like, you're a pilot, and like, let's go fly.
Yeah.
But yeah, super. Nothing but respect for that organization.
Yeah, that's sick, man. So, shifting the gears towards kind of our fitness methodology. So, how much of fitness is mental conditioning versus physical training? So, when someone's going out and they're going on a long ruck, a long run, just having a long week in general, how much of that do you think is tied into the mental aspect versus a physical?
If I had to put a percentage on it, I would say like 60%. I'd say like 50-50 almost. It's as far as the physical standpoint of it, we have to get our impact resistance up to obviously make sure that we're not having injuries or overuse injuries sustained for those movements. We have to have the aerobic development so we can continue to fuel our muscles and recruit those muscle fibers throughout that process. But endurance work is hugely mental. It's hard to put into words like how far past that point of the pain that you experience you can continue to push. But I think a lot of times what gets guys is they start feeling that pain. Their alarms are going off. They haven't gone through enough of that mental conditioning over a period of time consistently to know that they can sufficiently push past that. So when their mind is screaming that their shoulders hurt and their legs hurt and their back hurts and they're not going to be able to make it to the finish, they start to listen to it and to reason with their mind, and then that's what gets them to drop behind or fall out or quit. So I think, every run that you go on, like there's going to be a portion of your time in the beginning that is just getting your body physically capable of moving those distances. Then obviously we drive run times down and everything like that, but the long runs, the long rucks, like after that initial point of physical conditioning, I think the percentage that it becomes mental conditioning as well continues to increase. Because it's all providing that feedback loop of like, I know that when I feel this feeling, like my mind is screaming, these alarms are going off, I can continue to push. And because I've done it so many times, I know I'm going to be just fine. So it's the guys who have experienced this for the first time that they start really listening to those signals.
Mm-hmm. So what role do you think belief actually plays into that and them being successful? So for a long ruck, long run, like if they're like, hey, I can do this versus like, I don't know, I have a 50-50 shot of actually completing this. Do you think that actually makes a difference?
100%. And I actually read a book recently called Endure, and it was by Alex Hutchings. Man, I really need to be better at freaking authors' names, but Alex Hutchings, Endure, and they actually ran studies on belief and how it correlates to individuals' performance in both endurance events and speed events. And one of the studies that they did, or kind of trials that they did, was they had people running, around a track, and they were calling out split times. So let's say you're doing a mile run, so a 5 mile run around a track, and you're running at a 7-minute pace. So these guys were calling out 6:30, 6:20, like thinking that, basically telling them that they're running faster than they are. And those guys performed like 40% better than the individuals who they either said that they're, accurate with the split times or slower with the split times. And the only constant there was belief of how fast they were able to go. Even from a endurance standpoint, when we kind of pull on those like negative thought processes, or our mind starts saying you're not able to do this, it increases the rating of perceived exertion. And when our rating of perceived exertion increases, or how hard it generally feels, we get slower, we're not able to push as far, and the central governor theory starts to come into play even more, because our body starts limiting our ability to even recruit those muscle fibers. So simply believing that you're capable of doing it, or not allowing those intrusive thoughts to infiltrate your mind or plague your mind, so to say, will have a tremendous impact on your overall endurance capacity. They did another study with with guys on bikes. One of the guys that they flashed like subliminal messages, like half a second or less, where they just flash an image with a smiley face, and the other one they flashed with a frowny face. And the smiley face test group had a much lower rating of perceived exertion, so the work felt easier, and they had like 4% increase in performance. So just positive or negative thoughts or things that are imposed onto your mind can have an actual impact on your physical performance.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Huh. What a study.
Right?
I get a smiley face tattooed on my hand. Look out when everything starts to suck.
Yeah, exactly. But it makes sense. Like, I think people can, especially in like the strength and conditioning world, we focus heavily on the science behind the training. Like, okay, we need to spend time in this heart rate zone for this period of time. We need to run at this pace for this distance. And those things matter, but we can never negate the importance of the mindset development in those sessions. And every long run you go on, every time you push past that, mid portion of a long run where you don't have the dopamine of getting closer to the finish, and you don't have the excitement of starting the run, you build that skill set or that mental development.
So for yourself, do you ever feel that like feeling of stress, like doing an endurance event, or you're like, the panic starts to hit and you're like, shit, like, I don't know if I'm going to finish this, or like, how do you manage that stress for yourself?
I mean, yeah, Ragnar.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's times where I was like, even the Arizona one, where, it was like 30 miles in 24 hours or something like that. And I remember one of the ones I got like 2 hours of sleep, just could not sleep. People are partying, doing their thing. And I was just dog tired, woke up, and I had like a 10-mile leg. And I was like, out in the middle of nowhere with a headlamp, running this trail. There's definitely going to be intrusive thoughts that enter your mind. Like, my calf was tight. You know what I mean? Like, am I going to freaking strain my calf? How are my Achilles feeling? But it's important to know that and this is why experience with endurance work is so crucial, is because you're going to have intrusive thoughts. Like, you're going to be running and you're going to feel pains and aches in your body, and your mind might be like, oh, this is a broken ankle, you're about to tear your Achilles. Like, it's screaming these overwhelming signals. And a lot of times we can start, giving that weight, if we don't have the experience of like, no, I know what this actually feels like. It just, I'm starting to cramp up a little bit, or it's getting a little bit tired. I'm freaking climbing a hill, like all of those different things. So like, experience is very valuable when it comes to endurance work. So yeah, even if I'm doing an endurance event, I might have those intrusive thoughts. But because I've done it, push past that point or what I'm feeling, I know that it's just an intrusive thought. I don't have to pay it any attention.
Yeah, it's like almost the more reference points you have, the better, because you're like, oh, I've been through this before.
Yeah.
And yeah, have I told you about how I got rhabdo?
From the Go Ruck?
Yeah, from the 50 miler.
Vaguely.
Vaguely, yeah. So it was a whole thing. So I
Yeah,
did
run it
not-
down.
I hardly trained at all, and this was pre-COVID. This is probably 2018, 2019. I was like, oh, this is cool. Like my buddy's like, hey, you want to do this thing? I was like, yeah, sure. So I signed up, and then he bailed out. And I was like, shit, now I got to find someone else to do this with, and everyone at work is like, oh, you're crazy. I'm not doing that. And then I ended up finding one person to join me. I was like, all right, let's send it. So hardly trained. Like back then, I had no idea how to train, right? I didn't understand progressive overload. I was just like, yeah, I went a few rocks. I was like, okay, I can do it when the time comes. It's just walking after all, I knew I wanted to do, special operations. So I was like, okay, I'm going to add extra weight than what they call for.
Oh,
so
goodness.
they say like, for males, like 20 pounds, for females, 10 pounds dry. I was like, screw it, I'm going to do 40 pounds. So put 40 pounds in my bag. And I didn't even have like a real rock, dude. I had this like Coleman, like Walmart bag, just like shitty. And I just like threw rocks in there. And then a few hours prior, my buddy was in town. He's like, hey man, you want to get drinks? I was like, yeah, sure. So I went, drank a few beers with him, then went straight to this event without training, was wearing like sneakers. And they're like, all right, here's your points. Like how it works is they say, you're going to go to these 5 or 6 points and you pick like which order you want to do it in. And it's like all over, wherever city you're in. This time it was Phoenix. And so we plotted our star course, they called it. And so you pick which spots you want to go to. And we went way West Valley last. And then we had to like make that trek back. And like the rhabdo started kicking in right around that point. I was like, damn, this is like freaking terrible, dude. Like I'm feeling like shit. And so wasn't drinking enough, wasn't having enough electrolytes, wasn't eating enough. And I think it was like around like mile 40. I saw like, I was like kind of starting to lose my mind. And I saw this like freeway and I thought I knew which freeway it was. I thought it was the 51. And then we got to it and I realized it was the 17, which is like 3 miles before that. And so I thought we're further along, it's like 3 miles out of 50, but like something about that, like just like hit my mental state so bad. I was like, damn it. Like I thought I was here and I was way back here. And yeah, like took a big hit and I like sat down on the ground in front of this like shitty ass gas station, like felt sorry for myself, threw up real quick. And I was like, can't tell everybody at work that I didn't finish it. I'm like, all right, let's go. And so we ended up finishing it. And yeah, it turns out I got rhabdo. So
damn.
yeah.
Did you know it was rhabdo like as it was coming on?
No, I had no idea. Yeah. I mean, I knew something was kind of up because I was like, I do not feel good. Like I was like nauseous, like I was throwing up, like I did not have to pee. I was like, I haven't peed in like hours. And I feel like I should have been like just the amount of water I was pounding, but I wasn't like doing enough electrolytes. So
right.
Yeah, there was like no retention there. So
that is gnarly.
Yeah. And then the next day, like I could not move like anything. Even my arms, like I was like they felt so locked up. It wasn't just the legs.
Wow.
I was like, damn, this is brutal. So
did you go to the hospital?
No, I did get blood work done just at, the urgent care or whatever. And
right.
Then I saw my liver enzymes and kidney enzymes were like crazy. So I just had someone give me some IV fluids and yeah, called it a day. But,
damn, dude.
Yeah, it was brutal. So I did everything wrong. But for me, like that's like a good, comparison point because I'm like, I was drinking a few hours before, didn't train, wearing sneakers, had this like shitty backpack that just like deteriorated by the end. The straps were like breaking and everything. But now whenever I'm doing something, I'm like, oh dude, like this is nothing compared to like what I did back then. So
you think back to that experience?
Oh, 100% all the time. And I just think back to like how miserable I was feeling. I was like, oh, this is doable. My feet aren't falling off.
Yeah.
So
well, I wouldn't recommend anyone getting rhabdo, but
no.
I agree that it is like a good marker of like, oh, I'm still feeling better than I did that day.
Right. And just having something to compare it to, I think it's important versus someone who, has never put themselves through a trial. As soon as they start getting tired, like they just stop. They're like, oh, this is too much.
Yeah. Would you ever do another Go Ruck event?
Probably. If you join me.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Yeah. I'd probably train this time. I wouldn't drink right beforehand.
That's good. Let's train up for it.
Oh, yeah, dude. So how do emotions like frustration or doubt impact performance when it comes to long-term goals? So if you're not seeing the results that you're hoping to see, if you feel like you're not quite where you are wanting to be, and you're like, oh, I'm a few weeks out or a few months out and I feel like I'm way behind, like how does that play into training?
I think it's let me go back. I think it's good to an extent to almost have something that, like, you, in your experience, where you went to and you experienced what it's like not training for it. Because we've all had those things where, like, I'm going to learn Spanish before I go to Mexico. I'm going to train for this. I'm going to lose 15 pounds so I can look shredded on at the pool over summertime. And then you get to it and you're like, none of that stuff happened. And then you feel that, like, damn, I really wish I would have done what I said I was going to do. So I think it's good to an extent to feel that once in your life, because for me, whenever I'm training up for something, I try to use as much of the time that I have possible, because I know what it feels like to not live up to the things I said I was going to do before that event and then go out there and not perform like I wanted to. So I think in regard to, like, doubt and the frustration, if you're always going to experience doubt with something like SFAS or something where it's going to test you. It's going to be this place that, is assessing everything about you. There's always going to be that doubt associated with it. So I would say, don't let that impact your actions on a daily basis. But as far as the frustration standpoint goes, like, if you've done the things that you said you're going to do, done and exhausted all efforts, checked all the blocks, prioritized nutrition, trained smart, did all of this stuff, more often than not, you're not going to experience the frustration leading into it. That usually comes from individuals who really just kind of half-ass their prep, and then they're frustrated that they didn't do all this stuff, and now they have all this anxiety built up before they go in. So I would say to those individuals on the front side of a goal, like, you don't want to be the guy that shows up to selection and you start realizing how hard it is, and you figure out that you didn't put in enough work on the front side, because you're going to be kicking yourself for that for years. So I would say use the time that you have now to make sure things are dialed in, to make sure that you're doing everything you can to make sure you're doing the right stuff and putting yourself in a position to succeed. And if you do all that stuff and it still doesn't turn out, well, you can take that experience and go apply it to something else, because that just proved to you that you're able to go through with what you said you were going to do. Whether or not it turns out is out of your control, but you put your best foot forward with all of the things that you can control going into that, and that is something to be proud of.
Yeah, love it. Well said. So a couple of questions from the community. So weekly we play a question and answer session. So if you guys have any questions for John, please ask him and we'll try to cover them. So our first one is, how fast can I see the results improve with my run times? How long will it take to go from 16 minutes to 13 minutes? I'm assuming they mean by 2 mile.
Yeah, 2 mile run. 98 days. It's going to take you exactly 98 days to go from 16 minutes to 13 minutes.
How many hours?
No, it depends on where guys are at. Guys with a 16, I usually say guys with a 15 plus minute 2 mile run can see drastic progress. You can get down sub 14 in 8 to 12 weeks. Like, if you really prioritize your nutrition, if you really stay consistent with your training, if you've already had 10 miles per week built up, you can get down there in that 12-week period. Sub 14 is when we start to see the speed at which those run times continue to improve slow a little bit. But going from 16 to 13 minutes, you can still do within 4 to 6 months in most cases, as long as you are training properly, eating well, and staying consistent with those couple things.
Mm-hmm. How extensive are military language courses for Green Berets?
Not as extensive as I had hoped. It's good. I think if you are somebody, this is for the Q course guys, if you are somebody who has an interest and is motivated to learn the language, you can get a lot out of that 6-month language school. If you're not and you're just there to check the block, you won't get anything out of it. You just always just do the bare minimum on your tests or your OPI every year. get paid for it, but you can't really use the language. So it is truly what you make of it. You're in a classroom from 8 to 4 every day, Monday to Friday for 6 months, and your only role during that time is to learn the language. Some classes are a little better than others, but they're all going to cover the same thing: basic grammar, basic structure of the language, and then hammer for the OPI, which is that oral proficiency interview, 45-minute call to pass the course at the end. But in the grand scheme of things, like 6 months learning a language is a very short period of time. You might get to a foundational level in the language, but if you really want to get to an advanced level where you can really use it and like really develop relationships through it, you have to stay up on it even after that course and during your time on a team.
It's just like any other perishable skill, right? Just because you pass PT tests and basic training doesn't mean you're going to be fit for your whole Army career. You got to stay on top of it, and you got to keep doing it and practicing it and reading things, listening to podcasts that you recommend, and all those skills that, you know, you can work on to improve your proficiency.
So, 100%.
Yeah. How can I decide if I'm just not cut out for this? I'm kind of second guessing my dedication and my decision.
So I did ask this individual, this is one of our clients, and I told him to do an exercise where he writes down all of the reasons, like the no bullshit, like I'm not trying to appease anybody, but the reasons why you want to do this. Is it adventure? Is it because you want to prove that you can? Is it because you want to be part of brotherhood? Whatever. There's no wrong answers. Like, let me take that back. The only wrong answer is that you are trying to do it for reasons that don't actually resonate with you, because you think it's going to sound good, because you think people are going to think more of you, whatever. Like, it has to be a reason that truly means something to you. So I recommend writing down all of the no bullshit. Like, you don't have to share this with anybody. Like, doesn't have to be, it can be as superficial as you need, as long as it, resonates with you, and then circle like the top 3 to 5. If you sit down with a piece of paper and you try to come up with the reasons as to why you want to do this, and you don't feel anything, you don't have any real reasons other than, someone talked you into it, maybe you don't really want to do it. And that's okay. But just be honest with yourself. And I think a lot of people aren't honest with themselves. They had a friend go do it. They see some stuff on Instagram. They see some stuff on social media, and they think that would be so cool to be an operator, but they don't have like a deep resonating drive or pull to go do it. It's just they don't have a whole lot of direction right now. Mm-hmm. So if that's you, just be honest. You know what I mean? Like, nobody is going to judge you if you don't want to do this. Like, it's, who gives a shit? Like, live your life doing the things that you want to do. Don't live your life on someone else's agenda for it.
And things change. I mean, this is a multiple year process for a lot of people, and myself included. Like, I was dead set, like, this is what I'm gonna do, like, this is all I care about. And then I reached a certain point where I was like, it just doesn't make sense for me and my family at this point. And that's why I'm kind of doing the med school thing. And I'm just like, this is kind of where I want to be. Like, I want to be making decisions in a healthcare environment, not so much working under a rock. And, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because people change, life changes, things move around. So
do you think you've come to peace with it? I
think, yeah, more so. It was kind of like, it became the sunken cost fallacy for me, if you're familiar. Mm-hmm. So
yeah. What is it, if you want to explain it for the listeners?
Yeah. So essentially, like, you can look at like stock market or any investment, right? You buy a piece of property that just sucks, and instead of just cutting your losses and walking away, selling it, you're like, no, I spent this much money on it. I'm gonna keep dumping money on it until it, starts to provide something. I think I was kind of getting in that rabbit hole of like, I'm gonna do it just because I said I was gonna do it, rather than it still makes sense, right? Because I was kind of wanting to do it as a way to get to med school in the end. And, it's like, oh, I can become a more well-rounded medical provider, get a little more experience and, go do SOCM, versus just like, why don't I just, get to the golden goose I'm after at the end? So, yeah, I think just kind of skipping those steps, and, things change, and, it takes a little longer than you expect. So,
yeah, 100%. I mean, we've had guys that I was coaching, and, halfway through the program, they're like, hey, coach, like, love everything, super grateful for you, but I've just decided that I don't want to pursue special forces. And I'm always like, yeah, I got it, brother. Like, it's a big commitment. And some people, you know, it's nothing against them. They just wanted to go pursue something else. I'm always like, hey, man, like, you know, what are you going to pursue? Best of luck. Like, you know, wish you nothing but the best. So guys that have gone that route, or guys that have like been on the other side and understand the commitment and how much it really does take away from like your time with your family, from other experiences that you may want to have, like, you're sacrificing a lot. So they're never going to judge you for changing your mind. Now, for those that have like a calling to do this and like a deep emotional or you know, intrinsic pull to go be a Green Beret, and it's always something they want to do. That's like what they think about. It keeps them up at night. Like, go freaking send it. Like, I freaking, you know, I will support you 100% every step of the way. So, you know, but I get the other side of the coin as well. So I would say to that individual, or to those that are experiencing something similar, just be honest with yourself.
I think that's a big part of it, right? And there's a grieving process involved, right? It's like, damn it, like, you know, I want to do this for so long and now I don't. And I think that's kind of the maturity aspect too. And, you know, like you said, being real with yourself and, you know, recognizing like, hey, you know, times have changed. Like, I started doing this back in 2012, you know, doing the Army stuff. And, you know, now here I am, 32 years old, and, you know, things are hurting a little more than they used to. And, you know, just recognizing it's like, hey, I'm married now. We have a house, like putting down roots, kind of like you had mentioned before, for yourself. And, you know, so, yep. I had been told before that if you're prepping for a 1.5 or 2 mile run PT test, you should train for a marathon. Do you agree with that philosophy?
No.
But marathon's only 2 miles.
I mean, why, if you are training for a 1.5 or 2 mile run, why would you train for something that is 26.2 miles? The 1.5 to 2 mile run is a high intensity event. So while you will see some initial progress if you just ramp up your mileage with like a marathon plan, there will be a point of diminishing return with the amount of miles you're running on a weekly basis. Just because you're running 35, 40 miles per week doesn't mean you're training your system in a way that is going to enable you to drive down your 1.5 or 2 mile run times at a fast pace. If you sustain that for several years to where your aerobic system gets so developed that you're zone 2 pace, or you're freaking, you know, you're running very quickly, then yeah, it can have an impact on it. But if your goal is to drive down your 1.5 or 2 mile runs as quickly as possible, train for that, not for a marathon. So you're going to be doing intervals, you're going to be doing a tempo run, your endurance work. So the zone 2 runs are not going to be so long or so taxing that it undermines the tempo or speed sessions that really are going to have the biggest impact on getting your run times down. So no, I wouldn't just say go train for a marathon and hope for the best with your 1.5 and 2 mile run. I would say train for that specifically, understand which sessions are going to move the ball forward the most, prioritize those, and then stay consistent with the plan, and your times will continue to fall.
Do you think a tempo run once a week or doing a speed session once a week would be more beneficial if someone has like a 2 mile PT test in a month or two?
I'd do both.
Both?
Yeah. I think even if I was going to structure somebody with 3 runs per week, I would do, let's say, basic Army stuff. Anytime you're training with a unit PT, it's usually going to be run Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I would do speed session Monday. You know, coming off of that Sunday rest day, going to be nice and fresh, get the most out of that individual session. I would do an easy zone 2 run Wednesday, and then I would do a release run or a tempo run on Friday. And for the speed session, I would say at a hard, so like it's the highest intensity run of the week at a hard but repeatable pace. So each one of those intervals, whether it's half-mile interval, you want to see a consistent split between them. You don't want to be like, you know, freaking 3 minutes, 320, 330, 340. You want consistency with those splits. For the endurance run, obviously keep it zone 2. You're not trying to crush yourself. And then for the tempo session, that's a challenging but sustainable pace. So at that point, we were like, if I were to run any faster, I would have to slow down. But at this pace, I can maintain it for a period of time. That's where we want to live with those tempo runs.
And what does the mileage look like for a typical tempo run? Like, what are you aiming for?
Depends on where someone's at. anything from 20 to 40 minutes. Well, I would say anything from 1.5 miles to 5 miles for like a mileage goal. So we're not going out and doing a 8-mile tempo run. If you were training for the Army 5-miler team or the 5-mile in general, then obviously we can extend those distances out. But specifically for the 2-mile run, 1.5 to 5 mile on those tempo runs is going to be golden all day long.
Got it. And last question is, how challenging is a Q course? What percentage of guys who pass SFAS get dropped from the Q course?
Once you pass selection, your odds of becoming a Green Beret go up to like 80%. In the Q course, it's challenging. You're going to have to work your ass off. You're going to have to study. You're going to do some shit that's harder than you did at selection. It is not easy by any means. But one, you've already demonstrated that you have what it takes to become a Green Beret. Two, they've invested in you. So now it's not just about selecting you and making sure you're the right guy. It's like about training you up to meet these particular standards. So unless you get in trouble, unless you just don't get it or you don't put in the effort to understand the information, you have about an 80% chance of getting through the Q course. Now, guys might get recycled. I got recycled. So, you can fail a test or get recycled to another class, but they've invested in you. They're not just going to kick you out. They're going to give you another opportunity to go through that. They'll train you up again for it, and then they'll have you take a test. So I don't want to say it's hard to fail the Q course, but you really have to just not care or get in trouble, or like I said, just be dumb.
Just don't be dumb.
Yeah, don't be dumb.
Hence the ASVAB score, right? GT score.
Yeah, I mean, you have the tools to be successful. Like, you're smart enough. Obviously, it's a little bit different. Like, you can fail the 18 Delta pipeline. That's very challenging. A lot of people fail that, but they'll most likely just reclass you and do another MOS.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Well, cool, man. That's all I got today. Thanks for sharing. And hopefully we'll get some more questions for next week that kind of follow the same suit.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. Appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you guys watching. If you guys want to see if our program is a good fit, there's a link to that in the description, as well as our entire 70-page ebook telling you exactly how to train for courses like Special Forces Assessment Selection. Other than that, appreciate you watching. We'll see you in the next one.